In the Conservation Archive at St. James's Palace, one autumn morning in 2002, a curator in white cotton gloves lifts a sheet of acid-free tissue from a shallow tray. Beneath it, a drop pearl earring, cream white and heavy, suspended on a gold fitting, catches the overhead lamp and holds it. The light does not scatter. It simply settles as though it recognizes the room. Royal household records from the months following August 1997 would have noted a piece of this kind in spare terms of material and provenance, a few words of bureaucratic precision, for an object that had been fastened before state banquets worn through separation hearings, and carried across a private sale catalog. The summer Diana was still alive to sign it someone later would refast the clasp someone these were never simply jewels. They were a form of royal language. And now the vocabulary was being quietly reassigned. Subscribe if you want the full documented history behind these jewels and the women who wore them. On the 29th of July 1981, Diana Frances Spencer arrived at St. Paul's Cathedral wearing the Spencer family tiara and a pair of pearl drop earrings crafted by Collingwood of Conduit Street, the London jewelers appointed to the royal household under their long-standing warrant. The earrings had been acquired for the occasion. Their weight, modest and cool against the jaw, was one of the few things she carried that morning that was entirely her own. The inheritance was already waiting. Within weeks of the wedding, Queen Elizabeth II lent Diana the Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara, a piece made in 1914 by Guard and Company for Queen Mary, modeled after a tiara associated with Mary's great-aunt, Princess Augusta of Cambridge. The Guard Commission produced a structure of 19 diamond arches, each supporting a detachable pearl drop, a flexibility of design that its maker built in deliberately for future hands to use as they chose. Jewelry in that court was introduction. It was a declaration of dynastic affiliation, rendered in diamonds and gold. A vocabulary you were expected to learn before you fully understood what you were being asked to say. Diana arrived without that vocabulary. Palace in lending and presenting pieces of enormous historical weight began her education immediately. The clasp of the lover's knot, fastened for the first time on Diana's brow in the autumn of 1981, held more than 19 pearl drops. It held a question about whose inheritance this had ever really been. In the autumn of 1981, during the state visit of Crown Prince Fahd of Saudi Arabia to London, Diana received what royal household records would catalogue as the Saudi suite. A set of sapphire and diamond pieces comprising a necklace, a bracelet, and earrings among its elements. The stones set in brilliant cut diamonds of considerable formal quality. Diplomatic gifts of this scale were processed through official channels. The Foreign and Commonwealth Office maintained records of state gifts, and the recipient accepted nominally on behalf of the Crown. Diana wore elements of the suite at documented state occasions in 1982. Press photographs from those evenings show her in the necklace, the sapphires catching chandelier light against pale silk, brilliant, cold, and precisely correct for each occasion. But the photographs taken informally in the same period tell a different story. At polo matches in G-Sters, at private engagements in Kensington, she returned consistently to the Collingwood pearls, the Spencer pieces, the smaller things that carried no ceremonial weight. The contrast between public adornment and private preference was not accidental. Biographer Tina Brown, drawing on accounts from those in Diana's household, described her as exceptionally deliberate in her jewelry choices, someone who understood the grammar of what she wore and deployed it with considered almost architectural precision. Those who observed her closely noted that her choices of adornment were never accidental. What the sapphire suite said, she wore when required. What she felt, she wore for herself. What Diana held in her own safe at Kensington Palace, and what the palace held on her behalf were in several documented cases different lists, and the distinction between them became one of the central complications of the estate settlement following her death in August 1997. Diana was not a passive curator of the jewelry assigned to her. Accounts drawn from Bradford's and Brown's biographical research suggest she maintained regular contact with jewelers including Collingwood Guard and later, Esprit, requesting adjustments, lending pieces for specific occasions, and in one instance commissioning a bracelet that bore no royal cipher, a private object entirely connected to no dynasty. In a letter of wishes reportedly prepared in the early 1990s and subsequently updated, she stated her intention that the jewelry she personally owned as distinct from pieces on loan from the royal collection, should pass to her NS for their future wives. The document was not a formal legal coddle, but its intent was clear. The royal collection and Diana's personal ownership occupied different legal grounds. Some of the most publicly recognized pieces associated with her, the lovers, not tiara among them, were never hers to bequeath. They had been loans. Others, including the guard sapphire engagement ring, were unambiguously her own. The palace has never published a complete itemized list of which was which. The boundary between loan and gift, between institution and individual, was drawn in records that remain largely sealed. The Cambridge lovers not tiara had been made for Queen Mary as an act of dynastic preservation, a deliberate echo of her continental heritage. A piece designed to anchor the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha lineage to its origins, even as the family formally adopted the Windsor name. When Diana fastened it at Kensington Palace before state banquets, she wore it into an entirely different context. Photographs from state occasions in the mid-1980s show her in the tiara, with its pearl drops fully extended. Court circular records from the period document her appearances in the piece across multiple state events. Yet what those images captured was something no official notation could name. A young woman who had mastered the visual grammar of royal authority and was deploying it with precision during years when her marriage was already privately in negotiation. Queen Mary had worn it as heritage. Diana wore it by the accounts of those who observed her closely as assertion. She chose it for the moments of highest diplomatic visibility, formal state banquets, portraits taken with the Prince of Wales' engagements, where the public symmetry of a royal marriage had to be projected regardless of its private condition. The tiara sits forward on the head by design, demanding upright posture and stillness. Diana's personal assistant, in published accounts from her time in the household, noted that Diana never complained of its weight. She wore it as though it had always been hers. Some historians argue she revered its connection to Queen Mary. Others suggest she chose it because it was the most powerful object in any room she entered. The tiara, as always, declines to say. By the autumn of 1992, when the formal separation of the Prince and Princess of Wales became a matter of public record, Diana's jewelry choices shifted in ways that were precise and observable. The lover's not tiara disappeared from her public appearances. Its absence was noted by royal correspondents and has since been documented in systematic photographic surveys of her wardrobe after that date. The guard sapphire engagement ring, a 12-carat oval Ceylon sapphire surrounded by 14 round diamonds, remained on her finger through every subsequent public appearance until August 1997. Its continued presence required no annotation. The Christie's New York auction on the 25th of June 1997 is the most documented public act of deliberate severance in Diana's career. She organized the sale herself, not gaseous dispersal, but a living woman choosing, with documented precision, what she no longer needed to carry. 79 of her personal gowns went under the hammer that evening, with proceeds directed to AIDS and cancer charities. The Christie's sale catalog, now preserved in the firm's archive, lists each dress with its occasion, its designer, and its documentary history. The auction raised over $3 million. Jewelry was not included in that sale, but its logic was identical to what the jewelry decisions had been saying for years. What Diana chose to release and what she chose to retain were equally communicative. The gowns with a public costume, the armor of a ceremonial identity she no longer inhabited. The clasp that had been fastened so publicly, in July 1981, was being opened piece by piece. Diana's letter of wishes, reportedly prepared in the early 1990s, and referenced in accounts by her private secretary Patrick Jeffson, and in biographies including Tina Brown's, the Diana Chronicles expressed her intent that her personal jewelry should pass through her sons to their future wives. The document was not a formal codal to a legal will, and its standing after her death, on the 31st of August 1997, became a matter of considerable complexity in the months that followed. The legal framework governing the property of a separated member of the royal family at the time of her death was not straightforward. Jewelry gifted to Diana personally by Crown Prince Far, by other heads of state, by private individuals was hers outright. Jewelry on loan from the royal collection was not. In several documented cases, the records necessary to establish which category applied were disputed or incomplete. Charles Spencer, Earl Spencer, and Diana's brother stated publicly in the weeks following her death that he expected his sister's wishes to be honored and her personal effects treated accordingly. The Palace M. No public contradiction. The process of division was protracted, and in its final form only partially visible in any public record. What emerged was not a clean inheritance. Some pieces went to the princes. Some returned to the royal collection. Some entered a zone documented only in partial press accounts and archival photographs, present in one image and absent from the next, the record of their passage between those 2 points unwritten. In royal archives, that kind of silence is rarely an administrative accident. After Prince Charles's marriage to Camilla Parker B.S. at Windsor Guildhall on the 9th of April, 2005, certain pieces previously documented in Diana's jewelry archive began appearing in press photographs of the new Duchess of Cornwall. The royal household issued no statement confirming provenance. The pieces were identifiable by design. Pearl drop earrings, particular diamond bruise, and forms visible in photographs from across Diana's public career. But their appearance in images of Camilla went unacknowledged in any official caption. The evidentiary record comes from 2 categories of source: photographic comparison by royal correspondents and press observers, and background statements from individuals with knowledge of both households, none of which constitute formal palace documentation. The Royal Collection Trust has not published an inventory of transfers made in the decade following Diana's death. What those comparisons suggested was that several pieces had been physically altered. Resizing clasps and adjusting mountings to fit a different wearer is standard jeweler practice. The removal of engraved ciphers is a more deliberate act. It changes not the visual appearance of a piece to a casual observer, but its provenance record and its private register of meaning. According to reporting by royal correspondents, some pieces associated with Diana had borne her personal cipher. Those markings, it was reported, were removed. As those with knowledge of the royal collection have long observed, pieces of this kind are rarely misplaced. Their movement or absence from the record is itself a form of institutional communication. The distinction between losing a jewel and choosing not to annotate its new location is one the institution understands precisely, whether those silences were institutional, personal, or both. The record does not decide. The physical alteration of royal jewelry is not in historical terms unusual. It has been standard dynastic practice for as long as crowns have passed between hands. Royal jewels have routinely been reset between reigns. Stones removed from one setting have reappeared in another. The original context revised or erased by institutional design. Stone resets are the grammar of dynastic jewelry, a language in which history is simultaneously preserved and transformed. What distinguished the reported alterations to Diana's pieces in the assessment of royal correspondents, who reviewed press photographs in systematic comparison, was the specificity of what was changed. The Collingwood pearl drop earrings, cream white, documented in photographs spanning Diana's public career from 1981 through 1996, appeared in subsequent photographs on Camilla in a configuration observers identified as remounted. The gold fittings appeared adjusted. The drop length in photographic comparison conducted by royal correspondents and press observers appeared shorter. A clasp refastened. The same gold, different hands. The shimmer of those pearls identical under state reception light. The weight unchanged in any curator's hand. Yet the history they held, the geometry someone had chosen for them, quietly revised. The permanence of physical alteration is its defining characteristic. A monogram removed cannot be replaced. A pearl remounted at a different length has been moved from the position someone decided for. Both the mid-1980s photograph and the post-2005 photograph are documents. Neither is wrong. The space between them is not empty. It is a decision made by someone with a tool designed precisely to remove what was there before. In November 2010, when Prince William announced his engagement to Catherine Middleton, he placed on her finger the guard sapphire ring made for his mother in 1981. He had been carrying it, he said in the engagement interview broadcast on the 16th of November, for some time. "It's my way of making sure she's with us in all of this," he told the camera. The words are a matter of public record. The ring's visual history is nearly unbroken. From the guard workshop to Diana's hand in spring 1981, through the years of public marriage and private fracture, to the Kensington Palace, safe where it rested after August 1997, to Catherine's finger in 2010. It is one of the most photographed objects in the world. Its provenance requires no reconstruction. In the context of the pieces that had been altered and transferred elsewhere, William's choice was, without any official framing, as a counter gesture, not hostile. The record suggests nothing of that kind but precise. Here was what had not been changed, not remounted, not reconfigured. Here was the piece he had kept personally outside any institutional transfer mechanism carried in his own possession, made the most visible of everything his mother had left. What Catherine has not worn, confirmed by court circular records of state occasion jewelry across more than a decade, are the pieces now documented in photographs on Camilla. The lover's knot tiara is its own case. It returned to royal use on loan from the royal collection worn by Catherine at state banquets from 2015 onward, as it had always been a loan. The precedent for this kind of transfer, a predecessor's jewelry claimed, altered, and redistributed, is not without parallel in the documented history of the British crown. When Mary, Queen of Scots, was forced from her throne in 1567, her jewelry dispersed across several years into the hands of those who came after her. The string of matched pearl drops she had worn since girlhood, documented in Scottish royal inventories as among her most treasured possessions, passed to Elizabeth I by around 1568 or 1569 through a transaction recorded in contemporary royal accounts. In correspondence from that period, Mary protested the loss of her jewels, indicating she had expected them to be returned. They were not. They were worn. No member of the current royal family has drawn this parallel publicly. It appears here only because the documentary record permits it. The movement of jewelry between royal women is, across centuries, a consistent vehicle for claims of legitimacy, succession, and the quiet redrawing of dynastic lines. The altered piece signals that this lineage now runs differently. The retained, unaltered piece signals memory or the authority to determine what is worth remembering. Catherine's use of the lover's knot tiara occupies both registers simultaneously. She wears it under the same terms Diana did on loan from the same collection in the same ceremonial function. Some historians read this as continuity, the tiara following its intended purpose from one Princess of Wales to the next. Others read it as institutional reappropriation, the emotional claim of the original wearer quietly removed from the object while its ceremonial utility is preserved intact. William has never commented publicly on the alterations made to his mother's jewelry. His silence on that specific question is complete, and in royal communication, the completeness of a silence is itself informative. His decision to give Catherine the sapphire ring, his management of the pieces she wears on state occasions through the loan mechanism of the royal collection, and his documented reluctance to discuss the division of his mother's estate in any detail. All of these suggest a man navigating between two inheritances with carefully managed composure. The court circular, the official daily record of royal engagements, identifies jewelry by name only when a piece carries documented prior historical significance. The lover's knot tiara is named. The sapphire ring is named. Pieces once documented in Diana's archive and now appearing on Camilla are not named. They appear in press photographs without annotation. A photograph from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London in April 2018 shows Camilla wearing a pearl and diamond brooch that press observers and royal correspondents noted bore close resemblance to pieces documented in Diana's wardrobe archive. The brooch carries no official caption identifying its history. Its prior life is unmarked, annotated. Those familiar with how the royal collection has operated across centuries have described this institutional logic in consistent terms. What is not annotated does not require explanation. The institution has always absorbed what passes through it without necessarily recording the direction of travel. The clasp is present, carefully refined. The inventory line reads only what it has been instructed to read. Silence. The Royal Collection Trust maintains public documentation of pieces held in formal care. The Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara's history from Queen Mary's commission placed with guard in 1914 through its loan to Diana to its current use by Catherine, Princess of Wales, is traceable through those records, workshop archives, and an almost unbroken line of press photographs and court circular notations. The Saudi suite's diplomatic origins appear in Foreign and Commonwealth Office correspondence from 1981. The Gad sapphire engagement ring is documented in contemporary press records from the same year, and in Christie's historical auction, catalogues from the period when Gard's royal commissions were regularly noted in trade publications. Traceable. What the Royal Collection Trust does not publish is a complete inventory of Diana's personal jewelry at the time of her death, the full record of what was formally transferred are read to whom in the decade following 1997, or the precise nature of alterations made to individual pieces during that period. Researchers and royal correspondents have assembled partial pictures from press photographs, court circular entries, auction documentation, and background interviews. The picture is credible in outline. It is incomplete in specifics. That incompleteness is not an accident of poor record-upping. Incomplete. The public continues to watch. It identifies pieces from photographs, measures configurations against earlier images, and reaches its own conclusions. What the institution says and what the photographs show are not always in contradiction. They are simply often not the same conversation. The jewel has become a mirror. In it, the viewer sees not only history but the present, the choices still being made in gold and silence. Choices. The Cambridge lover's knot. Tiara is in the royal collection and is worn regularly by Catherine, Princess of Wales, on the same terms of loan under which it has always been held. The Gard sapphire ring is on Catherine's hand. The Saudi suite has been partially dispersed, some elements sold in Diana's lifetime, the remainder passed through channels not fully documented in public records. The Collingwood pearl drop earrings, cream white and substantial, suspended on gold fittings, present in Diana's photographic record from 1981 through 1996, appear in subsequent photographs on Camilla in a configuration that press observers and royal correspondents have noted as differing from the one documented in Diana's archive. The official record does not explain the difference remains. What remains unaltered is not only the sapphire ring, but the deliberateness of what William chose to do with it. He kept it outside the institutional transfer. He gave it to Catherine personally, having carried it himself for years, deliberate. He made it the most visible piece in her ceremonial wardrobe. He gave her the thing that had not been touched. Whether the alterations to other pieces represent standard dynastic procedure, a personal directive, or the quiet operation of a system that has always absorbed contested inheritances without announcement, the documentary record does not say. It permits the question. It does not close it. In the conservation archive at St. James Palace, the acid-free tissue lies flat in the shallow tray. Somewhere refastened at whatever angle was decided in whatever workshop by whichever hands held the tool, the pearl drop catches a different light. Now the inventory entry reads, Provenance, Princess of Wales. The box holds that line and nothing else.